Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here with you all in spirit at First Lutheran. My name is Chelsea, and I serve as network organizer at Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service, also known as LIRS. And what I find compelling, professionally and spiritually, about my work at LIRS is the opportunity for people of faith and people of goodwill to be directly involved in welcoming our newest neighbors. To me, that is a biblical call. As a lifelong Lutheran, it is something that I am honored and privileged to be a part of. And to be able to read the news in the morning, though it is often heartbreaking, to see headlines about our new neighbors arriving from Afghanistan or unaccompanied children at the southern border, and to know that LIRS is there. LIRS is doing something about it, and we as Lutherans can be a part of it and take pride in that work. To me, just feels like the way to use our gifts as we exist in this time and place.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, this Emmaus program that LIRS has for congregations, can you share a little bit about that program and how it might impact us, but also then how it might be of benefit and impact the work that LIRS does in the United States?
Absolutely. So the Emmaus Congregational Discernment Program is an opportunity for congregations to take pause and listen for how the Holy Spirit is calling them to respond to the needs of our immigrant and refugee neighbors. Often at LIRS, we hear from individuals and congregations asking, what can we do? How can we help? And this is an invitation from LIRS, but we also believe in an invitation from God to listen for how your congregation might be called to act. Congregations have played an essential role in the ways that LIRS is able to best welcome people who are arriving here in the United States. If we think back to the 70s and 80s, as we were welcoming refugees from Southeast Asia, it was congregations who were partnering with LIRS and really transforming the ways that our Southeast Asian refugee neighbors were being welcomed and integrated into their communities. In the next year, we're going to be helping resettle some of the 60,000 Afghan refugees, Afghan special immigrant visa holders who have arrived in the United States. But we're also seeing a drastic increase through the federal refugee resettlement system, welcoming refugees from around the world, where potentially up to 125,000 refugees will be arriving in the United States in the next year. And the only way that that's going to be possible, and the only way that we can try to ensure that these new arrivals are welcomed and integrated into their communities, is with the assistance and support of congregations. And so Emmaus is sort of LIRS's way of seeing what congregations raise their hand, what congregations want to be a part of this, so that we can move forward in partnership and in conversation.
We've actually years ago, sponsored a family that's now moved on and is in Orange County and settled, and so that's a good memory for us. Are there some other kind of creative things that congregations do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we try to connect congregations with our pretty big network across the US for both in-person and virtual opportunities to engage. Sometimes that means helping with airport pickups when a family is just arriving in their new community, helping set up an apartment, making sure that they have pots and pans and bed sheets and culturally familiar foods in the pantry. Sometimes it's after they've arrived, and that sort of longer term accompaniment of helping with English classes or making sure that kids are enrolled in school and perhaps have a cultural tutor or mentor to help them as they transition to life in the US, are some of the sort of standard ways that folks can engage as individuals or as a group. But we've seen some creativity, particularly in the era of pandemic, around virtual English conversational lessons or tutoring or just having a conversation And we're expecting or predicting that that type of interaction is going to be even more important as we see these increased numbers of arrivals. That we might have volunteers in Alaska who want to be a part of this work, but perhaps there's not an LIRS office nearby. We can find a way to plug them in and get them involved.
Okay.
Yeah.
And before we go, you had expressed earlier before I pushed the record button, we talked a little bit about your faith experience. Can you share a story with us, a moment maybe in your work with LIRS that was particularly meaningful to you, that kind of captured your heart and connected your faith to that on the ground work?
Absolutely. Yeah, just the other day, I was sitting in a meeting, LIRS, in response to the increased number of Afghan refugees who are seeking safety in the Northern Virginia, DC area. A family who was on a military base, as many of our Afghan evacuees have been placed on bases. And they were released from the base, and the family had all sorts of challenges. The father was legally blind, but had lost his prescriptive glasses during the evacuation. The mother was diabetic, but hadn't been able to receive the treatments that she needed for weeks. And they had a family of kids who were with them. And when they arrived at the LIRS office, they were able to be connected to some emergency medical provisions. They could receive a fresh set of clothes and some of those necessities. But it was this last Tuesday that their 7-year-old son attended his first ever day of school. They were able to get the kids enrolled, and it just gives me goosebumps to think about that this young child is already beginning to have some new hope and potential as they adjust to life here in the US. And it was LIRS staff who were walking alongside that family as they navigated their first few days in their new community after experiencing the unimaginable, right, of being evacuated, of waiting on a military base, and are just now seeing what life here in the US has to hold. And it gives me hope to know that that school for that 7-year-old little boy is on that path of them being welcomed home.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. Right. So be well. Thank you so much.